Jake Morrison gripped the control stick of his cargo ship as red warning lights flashed all around him. The Lucky Strike was dying. Smoke filled the cockpit while sparks shot from broken panels. His hands shook as he tried to keep the ship flying. "Come on, baby." "Just a little further," Jake whispered to his ship. The pirate attack had come out of nowhere. 3 unmarked fighters had jumped him near the asteroid belt, firing on his cargo hold before he could even send a distress call. Jake had managed to escape, but his ship was badly hurt. The engine was failing, life support was breaking down, and he was bleeding from a cut on his head. Jake looked at his star charts with blurry eyes. There was only one planet close enough to reach. Kepler 442b. He had heard of it before. A quiet farming world with strange aliens who kept to themselves. The locals called themselves the Zilani. They had never bothered anyone, never made trouble. Jake hoped they would not shoot him down. The ship shook harder as it entered the planet's atmosphere. Jake could see green fields and blue rivers below. It looked peaceful, beautiful even. Nothing like the rough mining worlds he usually visited. "Mayday, mayday!" Jake called into his radio. "This is cargo ship Lucky Strike. I'm coming down hard. Anyone out there?" Only static answered him. The ground rushed up fast, too fast. Jake pulled back on the controls, trying to glide the ship down gently, but the Lucky Strike was too damaged. It hit the soft earth with a loud crash, sliding through a field of strange purple crops before coming to rest against a hill. Jake's world went dark. When he woke up, everything hurt. His ribs ached when he breathed. His left arm hung useless at his side. Blood covered his face. The cockpit was crushed around him, and he could smell smoke and burning metal. Jake tried to move, but cried out in pain. His leg was trapped under twisted metal. He could feel warm liquid running down his face. Everything was spinning, and he felt very tired. "Help," he called weakly. But who would hear him on this strange world? Jake closed his eyes and waited to die. The sound of voices woke him. Strange voices speaking in musical tones he had never heard before. Jake opened his eyes and saw faces looking down at him. But they were not human faces. The beings had smooth skin that seemed to be made of crystal. It changed colors like a rainbow. As they moved, their eyes were large and kind, filled with concern. They had long fingers that ended in gentle points. When they spoke, their skin glowed softly. "Please do not fear," one of them said in careful English. "We are here to help." Jake tried to speak, but only made a weak sound. The crystal-skinned being leaned closer. This one seemed older than the others, with skin that sparkled like diamonds. "I am Kethva," the being said. "This is my daughter, Miralyn. We saw your skyship fall. You are hurt badly." Jake looked at Miralyn. She was younger, with skin that shifted from blue to green as she watched him. Her expression was full of worry for a stranger she had never met. "We must get you out," Kethva said. "But we do not know your body. We might hurt you more." Jake managed to whisper, "Medical scanner. In the panel. It will tell you about humans." Miralyn found the broken device and handed it to her father. Kethva studied it with careful attention. Other Zilani had gathered around the crashed ship. They all looked worried. Their skin colors shifted from calm blues to concerned oranges and reds. "Can you move your fingers?" Miralyn asked Jake. Jake tried and found he could move his right hand a little. His left arm was definitely broken. His leg was still trapped, and he could not feel his toes. The Zilani worked for hours to free him from the wreckage. They were very careful, stopping often to check if they were causing more pain. When they finally pulled Jake free, he passed out from the agony. He woke up in a soft bed inside a building that seemed to grow from the earth itself. The walls were smooth and curved, like the inside of a giant seed. Warm light came from crystals in the ceiling. The air smelled like flowers and growing things. An old Zilani sat beside his bed. This one's skin was almost white, like pearls, with lines of silver running through it. "I am Nixta," the being said. "I am a healer among my people. You have been sleeping for 3 days. Jake tried to sit up, but pain shot through his body. "My ship." "Broken beyond repair," Nixta said sadly. "But you live. That is what matters." "Why?" Jake asked. "Why help me? You don't even know me." Nixta's skin shifted to a warm golden color. Because you needed help. Is there another reason? Required? Over the next few weeks, Jake learned about the Zilani. They were farmers and builders who had never known war. Their world had no dangerous animals, no diseases that killed, no natural disasters. They had grown up in peace and safety, which made them kind to all living things. HFY visited every day, bringing Jake food that was strange but tasty. Mira Lynn came too, eager to learn about humans and the worlds beyond her home. She practiced English with him, and he learned some of her musical language. "Your people fight each other?" Mira Lynn asked one day, her skin turning dark blue with sadness. "Sometimes," Jake admitted. "We're not perfect." "But why? There is enough for everyone, is there not?" Jake did not know how to explain greed and hatred to someone who had never experienced either. The Zilani shared everything. When one family's crops failed, their neighbors gave them food without being asked. When someone was sick, the whole village cared for them. "We are working to be better," Jake said finally. As Jake grew stronger, he helped around the village. He fixed broken tools with his knowledge of technology. He taught the children games from Earth. He told stories about the stars and other worlds, making the young Zilani gasp with wonder. The Zilani, in return, showed him marvels he had never imagined. They could make plants grow with just a touch. They built homes that lived and breathed, cleaning the air and providing everything needed for comfort. Their cities were gardens, and their gardens were works of art. Jake tried many times to fix his radio to call for rescue, but the damage was too great. The Zilani offered to help him build a new transmitter using their technology. It would take time, but it could be done. As the days passed, Jake began to think that maybe being rescued was not so urgent after all. The Zilani had saved his life and asked for nothing in return. They had welcomed him into their peaceful world and treated him like family. For the first time in his life as a cargo pilot, constantly moving from one rough port to another, Jake felt like he was truly home. 3 months after Jake's crash, life in the Zilani village had settled into a peaceful routine. Jake worked in the fields during the day, learning how the crystal-skinned beings could make any plant grow strong and healthy. At night, he told stories to the children about distant worlds and flying ships. His broken bones had healed well under Nixta's care. The old healer had studied human medicine from Jake's damaged scanner until he understood it better than many human doctors. Jake could walk normally now, though his left arm still ached when it rained. Mira Lynn had become his closest friend. She taught him the Zilani language, which sounded like music when spoken correctly. Her skin would turn bright yellow with happiness whenever Jake managed to say a difficult word right. In return, Jake taught her about human technology and showed her how to repair simple devices. "Do all humans fix things the way you do?" Mira Lynn asked one morning as they worked on building a new transmitter. "Most of us try," Jake said, connecting 2 crystal circuits the way she had shown him. "Humans are good at making things work even when they're broken." Mira Lynn's skin shifted to thoughtful purple. "That must be useful." Jake was about to answer when a loud alarm sounded across the village. It was a deep musical note that made the ground vibrate under their feet. Jake had never heard it before, but he saw every Zilani stop what they were doing and look up at the sky with fear. "What is that?" Jake asked. Mira Lynn's skin had gone completely white, all color drained from it. "The deep sky watchers have seen something bad coming." They ran to the village center where a crowd of Zilani had gathered around a large crystal screen. Elder Nix. Ta stood before it, his skin flickering between orange and red as he spoke to the assembled villagers. "Friends," Nixta said, "our watchers in the sky have detected a great fleet of ships approaching our world. They will arrive in 5 days, the crowd murmured in their musical language. Jake could understand enough to know they were frightened. Their skin colors shifted from calm blues and greens to worried oranges and fearful reds. "Whose ships?" called out HFY. "The markings. Show they belong to the Dominion of Kalar," Nixta replied. A wave of terror went through the crowd. Even Jake, who knew little about galactic politics, had heard of the Kalar Dominion. They were a ruthless empire that conquered peaceful worlds and enslaved their people. The Kalar were known for their cruelty and their massive war fleets. How? Many ships? Miralyn asked, her voice barely a whisper. More than 50 large vessels, Nixta said, and many smaller ones. The Zilani began talking all at once, their musical voices rising in pitch with panic. Jake noticed that none of them talked about fighting back. They spoke only of hiding or running away. What about your military? Jake asked Kethva. Your defense forces? Kethva looked confused. We have no military. We have never needed one. But you must have weapons. Ships that can fight. We have tools for building and growing, Kethva said. We have ships for travel between worlds, but nothing made for hurting others. Jake felt his heart sink. The Zilani had evolved on a world with no predators, no wars, no violence of any kind. They literally did not understand the concept of military defense. They were like children facing a pack of wolves. That evening, the Council of Roots met to decide what to do. Jake was invited to attend because he was the only one among them who understood warfare. The council met in a great hall that had grown from a single enormous tree. The walls pulsed gently with life, and the air smelled of flowers. 12 elder Zilani sat in a circle, their skin shifting through worried colors as they debated. Some wanted to evacuate the planet entirely. Others hoped they could negotiate with the Kalar and find a peaceful solution. The Kalar do not negotiate, Jake told them. They conquer. They enslave. They destroy anything they cannot use. But surely they are reasonable beings, said Elder Velka, her skin a hopeful green. All thinking creatures can find common ground. Jake shook his head sadly. The Kalar see kindness as weakness. They will take your people as slaves and strip mine your world for resources. There is no reasoning with them. Then what do you suggest? Asked Nixta. You need to call for help, Jake said. Send messages to any allied worlds. Ask the Galactic Council for protection. We have no allies in war, Nixta replied. We have never needed them. And the council moves slowly. They could not help in time. Jake thought hard. The nearest human worlds were days away, but maybe someone would come if they knew what was happening. The Zilani had saved his life without asking for anything in return. Now it was his turn to help them. I need to contact my people, Jake said. Humans, we have experience fighting the Kalar. But your communication device is broken, Miralyn said. Then we build a new one, Jake replied. Fast. For the next 2 days, Jake worked without stopping to build a long-range transmitter. Miralyn helped him, along with several other young Zilani who were good with technology. They used parts from his crashed ship and Zilani crystals that could boost signals across vast distances. While they worked, Jake tried to explain military tactics to the Zilani. He showed them how to hide their people and how to make simple traps that could slow down invaders. But it went against everything they believed in. The idea of hurting another being, even in self-defense, made their skin turn sick colors. Cannot your terraforming technology be used as a weapon? Jake asked Kethva one evening. Kethva's skin turned a deep, angry red. Never! That power is for creating life, not destroying it. But if you don't use it, your people will die. Then, we die as ourselves, Kethva said firmly. We will not become monsters to survive. On the 3rd day, Jake finally got the transmitter working. He sent out a desperate message to any human ship or station that might hear it. He told them about the Zilani, about how they had saved his life, and about the Kalar fleet that was coming to destroy them. This is Jake Morrison calling any human vessel, he broadcast. I'm on Kepler 442b with a peaceful species called the Zilani. The Kalar Dominion is sending a conquest fleet. These people saved my life when they had no reason to help me. They can't fight back. They don't even understand what fighting means. If anyone can hear this, please help. These are good people, and they're going to die unless someone comes. Jake sent the message on repeat, hoping it would reach someone who cared. But space was vast, and human ships were few and far between in this part of the galaxy. On the 4th day, the Kalar fleet arrived at the edge of the system. Long-range sensors showed them moving in perfect formation toward Kepler 442b. They would be in orbit within hours. Jake tried one more time to contact human space, but his signal was immediately jammed. The Kalar had cut off all communication with the outside galaxy. The Zilani were now completely alone, facing an enemy they could not understand and could not fight. War Commander Thex Ral broadcast a message to the planet in the evening. His voice was harsh and cold, speaking through a translator device. "People of this world," he said, "you will surrender unconditionally within 2 days, or we will take your world by force. Resist, and your cities will burn. Your people will serve the Dominion as slaves, or they will serve as examples to other worlds that think to defy us." The transmission ended, leaving the Zilani in stunned silence. Their skin had gone completely colorless, with terror. Jake looked around at the beings who had saved his life. They were gentle farmers who had never hurt anyone. Now they faced destruction because they lived on a world with resources the Kalar wanted. "I'm sorry," Jake whispered to Miralyn. "I'm so sorry I brought this on you." But Miralyn's skin suddenly flared bright gold, the color of determination. "You did not bring this. This came because evil exists in the galaxy. But good exists too, does it not?" Jake nodded, not trusting himself to speak. "Then we wait and see which one is stronger," she said. Above them, the Kalar fleet settled into orbit like a ring of death around their peaceful world. Captain Lisa Hayes was finishing her morning patrol reports when the emergency message came in. She commanded the defense forces at New Austin Colony, a bustling human settlement on the edge of explored space. It was a quiet posting, mostly dealing with pirates and smugglers. The communication officer, Lieutenant Danny Clark, looked up from his station with confusion. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission from outside our sector. It's weak and breaking up, but the sender claims to be Jake Morrison." Lisa's coffee cup froze halfway to her lips. "Jake Morrison? Are you sure?" "Voice pattern matches our records, ma'am. But according to our files, he's been missing for over 3 months." "Put it through," Lisa ordered. Jake's voice crackled through the speakers, filled with static and desperation. "This is Jake Morrison calling any human vessel. I'm on Kepler 442b with a peaceful species called the Zilani. The Kalar Dominion is sending a conquest fleet. These people saved my life when they had no reason to help me. They can't fight back. They don't even understand what fighting means. If anyone can hear this, please help. These are good people, and they're going to die unless someone comes." The bridge fell silent. Lisa had known Jake for 5 years. He was a good pilot and a decent man who hauled cargo to the outer colonies. If he was calling for help, the situation was real. "How long ago was this transmitted?" Lisa asked. "Signal lag suggests about 18 hours, ma'am," Lieutenant Clark replied. Lisa made her decision quickly. "Send a priority message to Earth Defense Command. Include Jake's transmission and all available data on the Kalar Dominion. Mark it for E. Immediate attention of Admiral Pete Crawford." "Yes, ma'am. What about us?" Lisa looked at her small fleet of 3 patrol ships and 2 defensive platforms. "We're not equipped for a fight with the Kalar, but we can make sure Jake's message gets to people who can do something about it." The message reached Earth within 6 hours, traveling through the network of quantum communication relays that connected human space. Admiral Pete Crawford was in his office at Luna Station when it arrived, and he read it 3 times before calling an emergency meeting. The Admiral was a big man with gray hair and scars from the Proxima Wars. He had spent 30 years fighting humanity's enemies, and he knew the Kalar better than most. They were ruthless, efficient, and completely without mercy for species they considered weak. "Gentlemen," he said to his staff officers, "we have a situation." He played Jake's message for the room. When it finished, Major Andy Scott, the intelligence officer, pulled up data on his tablet. "Kepler 442b is outside human territory, sir," Scott reported. "Population about 2 million Zilani. They're listed as a peaceful agricultural society. With no military capabilities, the planet is rich in rare earth metals and has perfect conditions for farming." "What do we know about this Jake Morrison?" Crawford asked. "Cargo pilot, clean record, no political connections," Scott replied. "But his story checks out. Long-range sensors confirm a large Kalar fleet in that system." Crawford studied the star charts. 3 days jump to get there with our fastest ships. By the time we arrive, it'll be over." "So we do nothing?" asked Colonel Betty Ross, the fleet operations officer. "I didn't say that," Crawford replied. But engaging the Kalar outside our territory could start a war we're not ready for. The debate continued for hours. Some officers argued that getting involved in alien conflicts was not humanity's responsibility. Others pointed out that helping peaceful species was the right thing to do. Crawford finally ended the discussion when an aide brought him a news report. "Sir, the story has leaked to the media." The Admiral watched in amazement as human news networks picked up Jake's transmission. Within hours, the story was spreading across human space. The headline read, "Gentle Aliens Saved Human Pilot. Now. Face Extinction." Interviews with xenobiologists explained how rare, truly peaceful species were in the galaxy. Religious leaders talked about humanity's moral duty to protect the innocent. Veterans of alien conflicts shared their own stories of being helped by non-human species. Most powerful were the interviews with Jake's family and friends. His sister Kate Morrison spoke tearfully about her brother's kindness and how he would risk anything to help others. Captain Lisa Hayes explained how Jake had once saved her ship during a pirate attack, refusing payment and saying that people should help each other. "Jake saved my life once," Lisa told the reporter. "Now he's trying to save an entire species. If we don't help him, we're not the people we think we are." Public opinion moved like wildfire. Human colonies across the galaxy held emergency meetings. Elected officials received thousands of messages demanding action. Social networks buzzed with support for the Zilani and outrage at the Kalar. The pressure reached Earth within 12 hours. President Robert Chen called Admiral Crawford personally. "Pete," the president said, "I need options. The whole galaxy is watching what we do here." "Sir, we can scramble the Fifth Fleet under Admiral Susan Blake," Crawford replied. "But they'll be outnumbered badly, and it could provoke the Kalar into attacking human worlds." "What would you do if it were your family on that planet?" Crawford was quiet for a moment. "I'd go in with everything we had and worry about the consequences later." "Then make it happen," President Chen ordered. Admiral Susan Blake received her orders at 0300 hours. She was to take the Fifth Fleet to Kepler 442b and render assistance to the Zilani people. Her force consisted of 4 ships: the heavy cruiser, UHS Defender, destroyers UHS Ranger and UHS Guardian, and the assault carrier UHS Liberator. Blake was a veteran commander with 20 years of experience. She had fought pirates, rebels, and alien raiders, but she had never faced the Kalar Dominion in open battle. "How many ships are we facing?" she asked her intelligence officer, Commander Gary Wilson, as they prepared to jump to hyperspace. "Estimated 50 to 60 Kalar vessels, ma'am. Mix of heavy cruisers, destroyers, and invasion craft." "Odds?" "About 15 to 1 against us, ma'am." Blake nodded grimly. "Then we'll have to be 15 times better than they are." Meanwhile, on Kepler 442b, Jake watched helplessly as Kalar landing ships began descending to the northern continent. The invasion had begun ahead of schedule. War Commander Thex Ral had decided not to wait for surrender. The first reports came in from Zilani settlements near the landing zones. The Kalar troops were rounding up civilians and forcing them to work in newly established mining operations. Anyone who resisted was shot immediately. "They're not even trying to negotiate," Jake told the Council of Roots. "They're treating your people like animals." Elder Nixta's skin had gone completely gray with grief. 3 villages have gone silent. We fear the worst. Jake looked around at the peaceful beings who had saved his life. They were still hoping for a miracle, still believing that somehow this could be resolved without violence. But Jake knew better. The only language the Kalar understood was force. "I need volunteers," Jake announced. "People who are willing to learn basic survival skills. Not fighting, just how to hide, how to stay alive until help comes." Mira Lynn stepped forward immediately, her skin flashing determined gold. "I will help." Her father Kethva tried to stop her, but she stood firm. "Someone must learn these things. If not me, then who?" Several dozen young Zilani volunteered, despite their fear. Jake began teaching them simple tactics: how to move quietly, how to create hiding places, how to set up basic alarms. It went against everything they believed in, but they could see their world burning around them. On the second day of the invasion, Jake received a faint signal on his makeshift radio. It was badly distorted, but he thought he heard a familiar voice. "Jake, this is Lisa. Fifth Fleet. Coming. Hold on." Jake's heart leaped. The message was too broken to understand completely, but it sounded like help was on the way. He gathered the council of roots and played the transmission. "Human ships are coming," Jake told them. "My people heard my message. They're sending help." For the first time in days, color returned to the elder's skin. Hope was a powerful thing, even in the darkest hours. But that same day, Kalar ground forces reached the outskirts of Jake's village. The peaceful Zalani watched in terror as armored soldiers set up defensive positions on the hills around their home. War Commander Thex Ral had decided to make this settlement his base of operations. Jake looked up at the sky, searching for any sign of approaching human ships. Time was running out for the Zalani, and he could only pray that help would arrive before it was too late. The gentle beings who had saved his life were about to face their greatest test. All they could do was wait and hope that somewhere in the darkness of space, human ships were racing toward their world at maximum speed. Admiral Susan Blake stood on the bridge of the UHS Defender as her fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler 442 system. What she saw made her blood run cold. "Sensor report," she ordered. 53 Kalar vessels in orbit around the planet, reported Lieutenant Commander Frank Torres. 12 heavy cruisers, 31 destroyers, and 10 landing craft. They've established a complete blockade. Blake studied the tactical display. The Kalar fleet was arranged in a perfect defensive formation around Kepler 442b. Getting to the HFY planet would mean fighting through multiple layers of enemy ships. "Any sign of our missing pilot?" Blake asked. "We're detecting human life signs on the surface, ma'am, but the Kalar are jamming all communications." Blake looked at her small fleet. 4 ships against 53. Any sane commander would retreat and wait for reinforcements. But there was no time. Every hour they delayed meant more innocent Zalani would die. "All ships battle stations," Blake ordered. "We're going in." On the planet's surface, Jake crouched behind a crystal formation with Miralyn and 12 young Zalani volunteers. Kalar troops had surrounded their village during the night, cutting off all escape routes. The peaceful farmers huddled in their homes while alien soldiers set up weapons positions in their gardens. "How many?" whispered Miralyn, her skin pale with fear. Jake peered around the crystal. "About 200 soldiers, plus armored vehicles and heavy weapons." The Zalani volunteers looked terrified, but determined. Over the past few days, Jake had taught them basic survival skills. They learned to move quietly through their own forests and how to create simple traps using their knowledge of plant growth. "Remember," Jake told them, "we're not trying to win a battle. We just need to keep our people alive until help arrives." Suddenly, explosions lit up the sky above them. Jake looked up to see human ships engaging the Kalar fleet in orbit. Bright flashes marked the positions of ships firing at each other in the darkness of space. "They came," Miralyn breathed, her skin flickering with hope. "Your people actually came." In space, the battle was fierce and desperate. Admiral Blake had ordered her ships to attack in a coordinated strike, hoping to punch through the Kalar lines before they could organize a proper defense. The UHS Defender led the charge, its heavy guns blazing at the nearest Kalar cruiser. Captain Rick Stone pushed his ship's engines to maximum as enemy fire lit up around them. "Direct hit on their forward shields," reported the weapons officer. "Target is damaged, but still fighting." "Keep firing," Stone ordered. "Don't give them time to recover." The UHS Liberator launched its fighters while the destroyers UHS Ranger and UHS Guardian attacked from different angles. Major Carlos Rodriguez led 2 squadrons of Falcon fighters in desperate runs against Kalar landing ships, trying to prevent more troops from reaching the surface. "This is Blue Leader," Rodriguez called over the radio. "I've got 3 enemy fighters on my tail. Could use some help up here." "Blue 3, coming around," replied Lieutenant Sarah Kim. "Stay with me, Carlos." The human pilots fought with skill and determination, but they were badly outnumbered. For every Kalar ship they destroyed, 2 more seemed to take its place. On the UHS Ranger, Captain Lisa Hayes pushed her destroyer through a gap in the enemy formation, firing at everything within range. She had volunteered for this mission specifically, because Jake Morrison was down there somewhere and she was not going to let her friend down. "Captain, we've got 3 Kalar cruisers moving to surround us," warned her tactical officer. "Then we'd better move faster than they do," Lisa replied. "All power to engines. Take us straight through their formation." The Ranger accelerated toward the planet dodging enemy fire as it ran the gauntlet between massive Kalar warships. Lisa's crew worked with desperate efficiency, knowing that one mistake would mean death for all of them. On the ground, Jake watched the space battle while trying to organize the defense of the village. Kalar troops were advancing through the fields, burning crops and destroying anything they could not steal. "Can we use the irrigation system to slow them down?" Jake asked HFY. The old Zalani's skin shifted to thoughtful blue. "We could flood the southern approach, but it would destroy this year's harvest." "Better to lose crops than lives," Jake replied. HFY nodded sadly and began speaking to his plants in the musical Zalani language. Within minutes, water was flowing through channels that had been designed for irrigation, turning the fields into muddy marshes that the heavy Kalar vehicles could not cross. Mira Lynn and her volunteers used their connection to plant life in ways Jake had never imagined. They made vines grow across paths to trip advancing soldiers. They caused thorn bushes to sprout in strategic locations, creating natural barriers. The forest itself seemed to come alive to protect the peaceful Zalani, but the Kalar adapted quickly. War Commander Thex Raul ordered his troops to use flamethrowers to clear the vegetation and explosives to destroy the irrigation channels. "Your tricks will not save you," Thex Raul broadcast from his command vehicle. "Surrender now, and I will make your deaths quick." Jake grabbed the radio he had jury-rigged from spare parts. "This is Jake Morrison to any human ships in orbit. We've got about 200 civilians trapped in the main village. Kalar forces are closing in on our position." Admiral Blake's voice crackled through the static. "Morrison, this is Admiral Blake, 5th Fleet. We're working on it. Can you hold out for another hour?" "We'll try," Jake replied, though he was not sure they could last another 10 minutes. The space battle reached its climax when Admiral Blake made a desperate decision. The Kalar flagship was too heavily defended to attack directly, but she noticed that War Commander Thex Raul's ship was hanging back from the main battle, coordinating the invasion from a safe distance. "All ships, new target," Blake ordered. "We're going after their command ship." The 4 human vessels formed up and charged straight at the Kalar flagship. Enemy ships moved to intercept them, but Blake had timed the attack perfectly. The Kalar were caught between defending their commander and maintaining their orbital positions. Major Rodriguez led his remaining fighters in a coordinated strike against the flagship's engines, while the capital ships hammered its shields with everything they had. "Their shields are failing," reported the weapons officer on the Defender. "One more pass should do it." But the attack came at a terrible cost. The UHS Guardian was caught in crossfire from 3 Kalar cruisers and exploded in a ball of flame. The UHS Ranger took heavy damage. Its hull breached in multiple places. On the surface, Jake saw the explosion in orbit and felt his heart sink. Good people were dying up there because of him, because he had asked for help. "Jake," Mira Lynn said, softly, her skin a gentle gold. "They came because they wanted to, because it was right. Do not blame yourself for their courage." The young Zalani had grown wise during these terrible days. She had learned that sometimes good people must fight to protect what they love, even if it goes against their nature. The battle's turning point came when Captain Lisa Hayes made a suicidal run at the Kalar flagship in her damaged destroyer. With her ship's weapons offline and engines failing, she did the only thing left to do. "This is for Jake Morrison and all the innocent people down there," she said over the radio. The UHS Ranger rammed into the flagship's command section at full speed. Both ships disappeared in a massive explosion that lit up the night sky on Kepler 442b. With their commander dead and their flagship destroyed, the Kalar fleet began to retreat. Some ships tried to continue the fight, but their coordination was broken. Admiral Blake's remaining forces picked them off one by one as they fled the system. On the ground, Jake watched Kalar soldiers receive orders to withdraw. They destroyed what they could not take with them, but they left the planet within hours of their commander's death. The battle was over. Humanity had won, but the cost had been terrible. Jake looked up at the burning debris falling like stars from the sky and thought about all the brave people who had died to save a world they had never seen. Mira Lynn put her hand on his shoulder, her skin warm with gratitude and sorrow. "They were heroes," she said simply. "Just like you." Jake shook his head. I'm no hero. I just tried to help my friends. Yes, Miralyn agreed. That is exactly what a hero does. Above them, Admiral Blake's surviving ships settled into orbit around the peaceful world, standing guard over the people who had shown such kindness to a single human refugee. 1 month after the battle, Jake stood in the rebuilt village square, watching human and Zalani children play together. The scene would have been impossible to imagine just weeks ago, but now it seemed perfectly natural. A human girl named Amy. Chen was teaching Zalani youngsters how to play hopscotch, while they showed her how to make flowers bloom with just a touch. The children laughed together, creating a sound that was both musical and joyful. "It is beautiful," said Miralyn, her skin shifting to warm golden tones as she watched the children. Jake nodded, though his thoughts were heavy with the memory of all who had died to make this moment possible. Captain Lisa Hayes had given her life to save people she had never met. So had the crew of the UHS Guardian and dozens of brave pilots. They would be proud, Miralyn added softly, reading his thoughts the way she had learned to do over the past months. The village had been rebuilt using both human technology and Zalani growing techniques. The new buildings were stronger than before, able to withstand attacks while still being beautiful and alive. Gardens grew on rooftops, and crystal windows captured sunlight to power everything inside. Admiral Susan Blake walked over to join them. The tough military officer had spent the last month working with the Zalani to establish a permanent defense agreement. Her skin was pale from spending so much time indoors, but her eyes were bright with satisfaction. "The council meeting starts in an hour," she told Jake. "Are you ready for this?" Jake straightened his new diplomatic uniform. Earth Defense Command had officially made him the first human ambassador to the Zalani. It was not a job he had ever wanted, but he was the obvious choice. "As ready as I'll ever be," he replied. They walked together to the great meeting hall that had grown from the roots of an ancient tree. Inside, the Council of Roots had gathered along with representatives from Earth, 3 other human colonies, and delegations from 6 peaceful species who had heard about the battle. Elder Nix Ta stood at the center of the hall, his crystalline skin shifting through rainbow colors as he spoke. The old healer had become something of a celebrity across the galaxy, representing the idea that truly peaceful civilizations could exist. "Friends from many worlds," Nix Ta began, "we gather today to speak of a new future. The Kalar taught us that evil exists in the galaxy, but humanity taught us that good can be stronger than evil if we stand together." He gestured to Admiral Blake. "Admiral, please tell us of your proposal." Blake stepped forward, her military bearings softened by weeks of working with the gentle Zalani. "The Earth Defense Force proposes the creation of the Peaceful Worlds Alliance. Any species that commits to nonviolence and mutual cooperation will be offered protection by human military forces." A delegate from the aquatic mer people raised a webbed hand. "And what does humanity ask in return?" "Friendship," Blake replied simply. "Trade if you wish it. Cultural exchange, the sharing of knowledge and technology, but mostly just the chance to know that good people are safe to live their lives in peace." Kethva, who had become something like Jake's adoptive father, spoke next. "The Zalani offer our terraforming knowledge to any world in the Alliance. We can make dead planets bloom with life." The bird-like delegate from Kepler 186F chirped excitedly. "My people can share our atmospheric processing techniques. We have learned to breathe life into toxic skies." One by one, the peaceful species offered their gifts to the Alliance. Medical knowledge, agricultural techniques, artistic traditions, scientific discoveries, all shared freely among friends. The reptilian delegate from Proxima Centauri B, whose people had survived their own war with the Kalar, spoke last. "My world has developed new defensive technologies, shield generators that can protect entire cities. We offer these freely to our new allies." Jake felt a warmth in his chest as he listened to these different species pledge to help each other. It was everything humanity had hoped to find among the stars, not conquest or competition, but cooperation and friendship. "There is one more matter," Nix Ta announced. "We must choose where to place the first joint defense station." Admiral Blake smiled. "If the Zalani agree, we'd like to build it here in orbit around Kepler 442b. This world showed the galaxy what it means to help a stranger in need. It seems fitting that it should become the symbol of our new alliance. The Council of Roots voted unanimously to accept. Within days, construction crews from multiple worlds arrived to begin building the largest joint project in galactic history. Jake watched the construction from his new office in the embassy building. The defense station grew larger each day as ships brought materials and workers from across known space. It would have weapons powerful enough to protect the entire system, but also laboratories, cultural centers, and gardens where beings from different worlds could meet and learn from each other. Mira Lin entered his office carrying 2 cups of the flower tea that had become Jake's favorite drink. She had been appointed as the Zalani liaison to the Alliance, responsible for helping new member species adapt to the cooperative system. The Vegan delegation arrived this morning, she reported, her skin showing pleased green patterns. They're very interested in our soil enrichment techniques. And the humans? Admiral Blake says the second defense station will begin construction at Tau Ceti next month. The Alliance is growing faster than anyone expected. Jake sipped his tea and looked out at the bustling construction. Sometimes I can hardly believe this is real. 6 months ago, I was just a cargo pilot hauling freight between the outer colonies. And now you're helping to build a better galaxy, Mira Lin said. Your people have a saying, do they not? About how small actions can have large consequences? A butterfly flaps its wings and changes the weather on the other side of the world, Jake quoted. Yes, you were the butterfly, Jake Morrison. Your crash, our rescue, your call for help. It all led to this. That evening, Jake walked through the village as the twin suns set behind the mountains. Human and Zalani families were sharing dinner together, their children playing in gardens that mixed earth flowers with native crystal trees. He stopped at the memorial that had been built near his old crash site. It listed the names of everyone who had died in the battle, human and Zalani alike. Captain Lisa Hayes' name was at the top, followed by the crews of the ships that had been lost. Thank you, Jake whispered to his friend's name carved in living crystal. You saved them all. A year later, Jake stood on the observation deck of Defense Station Harmony, watching ships from dozens of worlds come and go. The station had become a hub of peaceful cooperation, with trade flowing freely between allied species. He was no longer alone on the observation deck. Mira Lin stood beside him, wearing the simple white gown of a Zalani bride. They had been married the week before, in a ceremony that combined human and Zalani traditions, with Admiral Blake herself performing the service. The intelligence report came in this morning, Jake told his wife. The Kalar Dominion is avoiding our territory completely now. They've learned that attacking peaceful worlds comes with a price they can't afford to pay. Mira Lin's skin glowed with satisfaction. Good. Perhaps they will find better ways to spend their time. The Alliance now includes 43 species, Jake continued. Earth Defense is building 12 more stations like this one. In 10 years, every peaceful world in this part of the galaxy will be protected. And what about us? Mira Lin asked. What does the future hold for Jake and Mira Morrison? Jake smiled at hearing his name combined with hers in the human fashion. I think we help build the future, one day at a time, just like we've been doing. A soft chime indicated an incoming message. Jake activated the communication panel, and Admiral Blake's face appeared on the screen. Jake, Mira, Blake said warmly. I hope I'm not interrupting your honeymoon, but we've received a distress call from the Andromeda sector. A peaceful species, called the Hirani, is under attack by slaver ships. They specifically asked for the human ambassador who helped create the Alliance. Jake looked at Mira Lin, who nodded with determination. We'll take the next transport, he told Blake. Thank you both. The galaxy is lucky to have you. After Blake signed off, Mira Lin took Jake's hand in hers. Ready for another adventure? My husband. Jake squeezed her fingers gently. With you? Always. They walked together toward the transport bay where a ship was being prepared for another rescue mission. Behind them, Defense Station Harmony continued its eternal watch over the peaceful world below, where human and Zalani children played in gardens that grew from the ashes of war. The memorial wall in the station's main corridor displayed a simple message that had become the motto of the Peaceful World's Alliance. They helped one stranger, and in return, we guard their skies. But the truth is deeper. We protect the idea that kindness should never go unanswered, and that the strong have a duty to shield the gentle. As Jake and Mira boarded their ship for another world in need, the stars themselves seemed to shine, brighter, as if the galaxy itself approved of what they had built together, a future where peace was not weakness, but strength, and where no good deed would ever go unanswered. The last entry in Jake's daily log read simply, "Today, we received another call for help. Tomorrow we answer it. This is what we do now, what we've always done, what we'll always do. We stand guard over those who cannot guard themselves, and we make the galaxy a little bit safer for everyone who chooses kindness over cruelty. The Zilani saved one human refugee. Now humanity and its allies stand guard over the skies of any world that needs protection. It's not a bad way to spend a life."